Hello, people. How's it going? Yes, today's subject in the writing the books portion of my YouTube channel will be trashy books. Woohoo! Anyway, I mean, there was a YouTube tag going around talking about the subject, so I figured why. And yes, I have actually read Lolita. It is exactly what you think it is. It's exactly what it's claimed to be. They've changed her age in the movie. Of course, she's 12 in the book. This book is exactly what you think it is. It's also better written than certain movies and/or books I'm going to mention. It at least has plot, character development, a point. Yeah, it's interesting. I may get back to it. It is trash. I mean, by definition, this is a trashy book. By definition, this book is a lot of things, but boring it is not. Unlike 50 Shades of Grey. Oh, I hated that book. I didn't want. I've read 50 Shades of Grey. This book is far better than 50 Shades of Grey. I found 50 Shades of Grey not just trashy, because of the sex scenes and the eroticism which doesn't exist in the book. They're all tropes. Everything in that book, 50 Shades of Grey, is a trope. It's a stereotype. I've read better. Sorry, why am I yelling? I've read better, people. It bored me. I could not finish it. 50 Shades of Grey bored me. It's like, it's so hard. I've spent 3/4 of this book listening to Anna tell me how, I can't do that. I won't do that. Oh, by the way, let's keep doing what you're doing to me. Anna, you may be schizophrenic. Because on one hand, she's saying how she doesn't want to do this and how she doesn't feel comfortable and so on and so forth. And on the other hand, she's saying whatever he wants to do to her, he's going to let her do to her. I found it boring. I didn't find this boring. This is a good book on psychology, by the way. It's probably why I like this book. It is trashy. It's not pornographic. And the one thing about this book is it's not graphic. It's not really pornographic. It's a lot less descriptive of what's happening than the 50 Shades of Grey book. This book doesn't describe anything. It implies a lot. It comes pretty close to being almost graphic, but it's not graphic. It's not even close. 50 Shades of Grey is boring compared to this book. But 50 Shades of Grey bored me because I've read better. I've seen better. If you want to see a movie that's based on pretty much the same kind of subject, watch The Secretary with Maggie Gyllenhaal. And I forget who the actor is who played it, but that's a good movie. That's a biography I have on the writer. It's actually pretty good about where he came up with the idea and why and so on and so forth. If I remember correctly, it's actually based on a true story. Could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain it's based on a true story. Lolita is trash. It is trash. It is exactly what it's always been. But it's well-written trash. It is. It's well-written. I like the psychology. To me, that's what I like about erotic fiction. Whatever kind of fiction wording you want to use, pornography, erotic, sex, romance. I like studying the psychology of things. This book is good on psychology. If you ever want to get in the mind of someone who has a serious sexual problem, and not Lolita, I'm worried about the guy whose name is Hibbert. How do you say his name again? Hubert. That has got to be the strangest name I've ever heard of. Hubert. Yeah, anyway. But, okay. This is the other book of his I have. This is kind of normal stories. But I tried to find the books I have that would constitute trashy novels or trashy anything. The next one's going to. Okay, this one's already been mentioned by someone who I just got the idea from in his video. I do enjoy his videos. I think Michael Vaughn does wonderfully funny videos. Him and Roger. I don't have a Roger. I had a penny. Penny's not here anymore, but I had a penny. Maybe I should dig up some ancient Aztec mummy or creature or something, and he can be my sidekick. But anyway, I've read some of her short stories. She is very, it's the first American stories by a woman celebrating sexuality with complete and open abandonment. Eh. Death of Venus, a joyous display of the erotic imagination. Not really. I mean, it was considered trashy if it was writing. It probably still is. It was I am the other author. I have a few other authors, but I didn't find it trashy. I found it kind of boring. My problem is very simple. You can have all the sex scenes you want. You can have all the erotic descriptions you want, vulgar language you want, but if it's written badly, if it's written with no plot thought really in mind, other than sex, 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 sex. Sorry, you're going to bore me. I'm sorry. Sex is fun, but you're going to bore me if that's the only plot you have in this entire story. I need character development. I need a plot. I need something that's believable. Most of this is almost believable. Not saying it's bad. It's not badly written for some people. For me, it was kind of it's okay. It's middle of the road. It's not Lolita. In fact, it's below Lolita, but it is above. Is it above 50 Shades? It's kind of 50 Shades-ish, but I don't want to insult this book with 50 Shades. I'm sorry. I will keep coming back to that book because that book bored the hell out of me. And it did. This almost interests me. So I think trashy books, by definition, at least to me anyway, is a book that is so focused on one aspect of the story, like sex or violence or whatever, and it's written as if it were written by a 15-year-old boy who thinks knows what a naked girl looks like who's never seen one. A lot of erotic fiction I've read comes across as if it were written by a teenage boy who's never actually seen a girl naked, let alone ever, and thinks he knows what he's talking about and doesn't. And it comes across that way. I mean, I've written erotic fiction. I like writing it every once in a while when the mood strikes me. But I try to have a plot that makes sense. I have a plot why that's there. I try to have a plot that surrounds the story, but I don't like erotic fiction or trashy fiction where sex and violence overrides everything. That's boring. And I find a lot of it boring. I found 50 Shades boring. I didn't find it so much. I found it middle of the road, as I said. Lolita, I found psychologically interesting. Because actually, nothing very much sexual is actually described in that book. I mean, I think I've seen the original. I've seen the one with Peter Sellers and James Mason, Shelley Winters, and whoever that girl is who plays her. Well, I know a terrible thing to say, but in the book, she's 12. In the movie, I think she's 14 or 15. But that's just me. And I like the psychology of trashy books to be good. I don't mind trashy literature as long as it's at least attempted to be good. If it's drowned in slang and sexual words and sex and violence and nothing else, you're going to bore me. And I'm not going to finish your book because it's all been done before. Anyway, this is the Marquis de Sade. This is the only book on the Marquis de Sade I've ever read. It's Justine. I liked the movie. I think it was called Quills with Jeffrey Rush. The movie's pretty good. I like the movie. The movie's pretty good. This is exactly what you think it is. This is right up there with this. No difference. One written by a woman, one written by a man. Yeah, it has sex scenes in it. It has a lot of things in it. It's written by the French, who love their sex. I found it boring. I'm sorry. I found it trashy because it's written trashy. Because there's no plot development. There's no character development. There's no... If it comes across as wooden, and maybe that's the word I'm thinking of, But this book comes across as wooden. It's supposed to be a classic, which means it probably isn't as good as advertised. She's supposed to be this brilliant writer of sexual freedom, and it's boring for the most part. And I'm back to Lolita again. But psychologically, the Hubert, I can't remember how to say the poor guy's name. I'm saying it wrong. But psychologically, Lolita is a brilliant book of a psychology of someone who has sexual interest in children, in young kids, and young adults, or young anything. It might be trashy, and it is, but the psychology is interesting. He wrote a very interesting book. Granted, it's not for everybody, and I wouldn't expect it to be. There's also another book that I used to have called My Secret Life. I used to have it, and this book, I am sorry. If there was ever a trashy novel of eroticism, and it was written badly, I mean badly, this was the book. My Secret Life. Yeah, My Secret Life is a Victorian novel. The author is unknown. And it says unknown, author unknown. Though some scholars think they know who did. I'd have to look it up. But it's bad. And I'm not, and that's what it comes across to with me. I tried to finish it. I couldn't finish it. It was that bad. It was same level. But, erotic fiction. I like erotic fiction, unfortunately, that has a plot. It has to have a plot. If it doesn't have much, if it has a paper thin plot, sorry, that's trash. That's boring. That's not even trying to write a good story. You can write a good story and have erotic elements and trashy elements. This novel used to be considered trash, and it probably still is. When it first came out, was D.H. Lawrence. It's the only D.H. Lawrence book I have next to the one I'm going to show you. That's actually not a novel, though. Sorry. This was considered trash when it first came out, and it was scandalous when this came out. You read it now, and it's like, It is. I haven't read it yet, but I've read. Now, this book is his defense about why he writes what he wrote. Sex, Literature, and Censorship essays, including Lawrence's defense of Chatterley's Lover. I've read parts of this. I get what he's saying. That, you know what? We need to stop acting like sex doesn't happen, like lust doesn't happen, that men and women don't have sex and don't have relationships and don't do this, that, and the other. It's kind of what he's saying is, we need to stop pretending that men and women don't go to bed together. That's a very general and very limited explanation. I mean, I like this book. I mean, it's actually essays. He makes some good points, but some novels like this go a little. It tries to do it, but fails because I don't think it's as erotic or sexual as people think it is. At least I don't think it is. I'm not sure he would agree with Justine. He might, but I question that. I'm trying to remember. I tried to get all the books I have on the subject. I got a minute or so to go. To me, a trashy book is one that is written in a way that when you read the characters, there's no depth to them. There's no depth. There's no character development. There's nothing but one thought in their heads: sex or violence. Most trashy novels have two pillars, usually two pillars, that makes them trashy. Constantly harping on sex and sex, basically. Sex and sexuality and anything they can think of. And violence. And generally, a lot of times at the same time. You can write good erotic fiction, good trashy fiction with that have plots, that have the analyzing of psychology, which is, I keep saying, which is why I like this book, because I like the psychology of it. The actual events in the book aren't as interesting to me as why. But anyway, I like books, people, so shoot me. Trying to remember if I have any other books that might constitute trashy. I used to have 50 Shades of Grey, but that was somebody else's book who wanted me to read it, so I read her book. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not impressed with 50 Shades of Grey. I think it's boring. I think it's boring. It's a lot of tropes. It's a lot of I don't want to do that, but let's do it again, Mr. Gray. But I don't want to do it, but let's do it anyway. It's like, make up your mind, Anna. Make up your mind. I found it boring. But anyway, those are my rambling thoughts on the subject for the moment. Please subscribe, please comment, please like, please share.